In this video, we will sketch the graph of this sine function between a domain of 0 to 2 pi inclusive, labeling the coordinates of the endpoints and axial intercepts. We will need to open two pages. One page is the calculator page, and the other page is the graph page, so that they are linked to each other. We will go to Doc, for Insert, to Page, or add Calculator. We'll also set up the other page as well, for Insert, to Page, to add graphs. Now that we have it all set up, if you press Control Up, you can see an overview of a total of 3 pages. You might only have 2 pages. So as long as you have the calculator and the graph, that's okay. Let's go to define our function now. Yes, it says y equals, but we can define our graph as f of x. So let's go over here. We'll define our function. Use your preferred method. I prefer to go to menu 1 actions, 1 define, and then type in f of x equals to 2 times sine, open the bracket, 2 times the bracket of x minus pi over 3. Now, instead of typing pi, the pi symbol, I will just press pi, and I'll turn caps off. Pi will also register as the letter pi when you press enter. Close the brackets, and don't forget the square root of 3. We'll also define our domain as well by pressing Control equals to get the given that symbol, or the pipe, and we will use our less than or equal to symbol to type in our domain. Once we press enter, you will notice that the letters pi turns into a pi, and our function is now defined. Let's go to sketch up our graph now in 1.3. You can use your cursor to click on 1.3, or you can press Control right to go across to the graph itself. We will have f1 of x, but we will type in our function, f of x, as it is linked to our 1.2. Once we press it in, our graph pops up like so, between 0 to 2 pi inclusive. We want to readjust our window settings now so that we get a better view of our graph. So let's readjust our window settings first by going to Menu, 4 Window Zoom, 1 Window Settings. We'll adjust our domain here, our xmin and our xmax, to 0 to 2 pi, pressing Tab in between to allow you to jump between the boxes more quickly. For our X scale, we can leave it as automatic, but the highest common denominator across all of the exact values is pi over 12. So let's set this as pi over 12. So I'll type in pi divided by 12, and let's just press OK. So by using pi on 12, it creates a finer grid that will allow for any exact value in our calculations. The next thing I want to do is stretch out the graph a bit, particularly our y values, by going to Menu, 4 Window Zoom, A Zoom Fit. This will stretch out the y values to an appropriate level. And when we go to invest our graph a bit more, we can always readjust our y scale so that the grid looks a lot nicer. We can see here now that we want to label the endpoints and the axial intercepts. We can see that we've got our endpoints on either side here, and we can also see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4 x-intercepts. Let's go back to 1.2 here and find our endpoints first. So our endpoints occur at x equals 0 and x equals 2 pi. So if we substitute in x equals 0, we'll get our y value. And if we substitute in 2 pi into f, we'll get our y value as well. Great. So we've got our coordinates 0, negative 2 pi on 3, and 2 pi, and negative 2 pi on 3. Let's go across to 1.3 to label them in. To label this in exact form, without creating decimal places, we will need to manually input this by going to 8, Geometry, 1, Points and Lines, and 3, Points by Coordinates. We'll type in 0 and negative 2 times square root of 3. Making sure you press enter in between each click. Let's type in the other one. Menu 8, 1, 3. Type in the x value of 2 pi, press enter. And we'll also type in negative 2 times square root of 3. Enter again. Now to get out of this function of the point, you need to press the escape button. Now our graph looks quite nice here, but we want to give this a bit more breathing room. So where this negative 4.13 is, let's extend this down to negative 6 to give it more breathing room. Likewise at the top here, if we want a bit more room, let's increase this to a value of 2. Perhaps even a value of 3 by double clicking on the value at the top or the value at the bottom and readjusting those values accordingly. Now you can move these texts. You can move this text by clicking and holding down the middle button, and then you can move freely. So click and hold down the middle button until your cursor pinches. Swipe around the trackpad and then press enter to let go. You can also do the same with the other coordinate to readjust. The next thing we will do is find our x-intercepts. Our x-intercepts is when y equals 0. So when we go back to 1.2, if we want y to equal to 0, it's the same as saying let f of x equal 0. And we will need to solve for our x-intercepts. So let's go to Menu, 3 Algebra, 1 Solve. Type in f of x equals 0. We are solving for x. And since our domain is already defined, we should get all of the solutions within our domain. We can see that there are 4 solutions here. This aligns with the 4 solutions on our graph here. So let's go ahead and type them in. Pi on 2, 2 pi on 3, 3 pi on 2, and 5 pi on 3. We can go to Menu, 8, 1, 3. Our first solution was pi on 2. Press enter. And 0 for the y value. You can see this brings this point up. Let's drag this point up here. We can go to Menu 813 again. Type in 2 pi on 3. Press enter to jump to your y value. Press 0 and press enter again. Got 2 more. Menu 813. Our next one up is 3 pi on 2. Press enter. Type in the y value. And last but not least, Menu 813. We've got 5 times pi divided by 3 and 0. Move that into place. To get out of this function of point on, press the escape button and you'll see the top left hand corner disappear. And that's our final graph there. Now for our y-axis, if we investigate or look at the formula or the equation, we know that there is a vertical translation of minus square root of 3 in the downwards. So in our best interest, we will create our y scale as negative root 3. So to do that, we can go to Menu, for Window Settings, and down at the Y scale, if you press the Tab button to jump down to Y scale, we can change that to negative square root of 3. Just press Enter. Let's close our bracket. Sorry, instead of negative, we should make it a positive root 3. Once you press OK, you can see these points go through nicely. And if you want to see what your mean value, your maximum value, and your minimum value is, we can use the mean value as our vertical translation, which was negative pi on 3, negative root 3. So we can insert a graph by pressing Tab, type in negative square root of 3. That gives us our mean line. And to find our maximum line, going back to the equation here, we can see we have an amplitude of 2. So we will have negative square root of 3 as our mean line, but we were going to add another 2. That brings us to the maximum line. And last but not least, for our minimum line, we have negative square root of 3. And we are going to subtract 2 to get to our minimum line. I'm going to click on each of these and delete them. Now you don't need to have the mean, the maximum line, and the minimum line down. However, this might be helpful for you to see these as guidelines.